Hi, good evening. I'm Dr. Gayle Randall, and if you're joining me, I thank you because you're my date. 6 o'clock on Friday, and this is when I do my Instagram TV. So thanks for joining me because it's 6 o'clock and you're my date. So anyway, today, because it's going to take a little bit of time to get some of these concepts. I've talked about them in other ways before. Talked about them, I think it was, I don't know if it was last week, but it's the most important thing that we all have going on our plate right now. It's just hard to know that we have it because there's so many other things that are being blasted at us, and our lives take us in a certain way, and we watch the news and it continues to scare the bloody hell out of us that we have to do this or that with masks or no masks or vaccines or no vaccines. That's all well and good, and I don't say no, but what I do say is the biggest problem that's facing the planet and us right now is climate change. And that's what we have to start doing something about. And when people hear that, they go, no, I can't do anything about that. I'm just this one little person. But in fact, every one little person can do something. One little person can't do everything, but one little person together with one little person and one little person together can do everything. Every person can do something, even if it's something like carpool, or don't use the plastic bags in the store. Use net bags. You can buy them on Amazon. Or, start a compost pile. Grow your own food. Put your food directly in your cart. That thing about COVID being on surfaces is not the truth anyway. And, share it with other people. Talk to your friends about this. Repurpose. Clothing is the biggest cause of climate change on our planet. Isn't that crazy? I really didn't know that till I began to read Paul Hawken's book, Haukens. I recommend you get it and you read it. It's phenomenal. He has a positive approach. He's kind of like me in that regard. And he presents climate change in a way that's palatable. And he's going to share some of the things I'm sharing with you, in addition to other things that he knows about that I don't know as much about. But maybe if you belong to community groups, you could talk about it there, bring it up, talk about it as a topic. Many minds together are better than one mind. So what can you come up with as a group that you could do in your community? Because little things matter. And I'll tell you why I think that in a minute, but, don't fly so much, because airplanes are unbelievably hard on the carbon debt. And take a road trip. Take your family, take a dog, but maybe not if you just got to go somewhere. Think about driving. Like I said, put your produce directly in your cart, and don't use those plastic bags in the store, please. So the title of this talk is Regeneration is the Answer to Healing, both personally and for the planet. So this is important to know, and there are ways we could get it. I'll tell you what changed, really shook my world, is when I watched David Attenborough's new movie on Apple TV called The Year the World Changed. I mean, a lot of it I knew already because I'm really into this, but it was much more impressive and absolutely astounding than I ever thought it was. I mean, the world changed. I mean, it regressed, it de-aged so quickly. In a year, whales began to talk to each other in new languages, because once and for all they could hear each other. That every place around the globe where there were endangered species, they began to come back. Cheetahs were very endangered, and they began to have more babies because the babies could hear the mommies calling them when they got the food, when they got the prey. Where when there's all these machines and trucks driving around and people, they can't hear it. And so they were dying or being killed by other predators. So the turtles, the little baby turtles, could make it to the ocean because they could, the beaches weren't overrun by, guess what, people. So would we die if we had 2 hours less beach time a day? What if we shut the beaches down for 2 hours earlier? You know, then the animals can have their time to move and breed and communicate, and the earth will change. The earth will begin to change because she doesn't need much. Small steps will bring great changes upon our earth. And if we all do them together, those little small steps become huge steps, huge changes. So part of the reason, as I implied, most people are so overwhelmed with their own lives and COVID and all the problems that we have going on and the fear mongering that goes on by the news and the government and big pharma that they can't focus on what they really need to, which is this problem we have right now, which is the worst disaster that we as a human race and this planet has ever faced. Paul Hawkins tells about how we need to act now, but he does it in a way where, like I said, we can all do the things that we can do. I grow a lot of food in my yard already, so I started a compost pile in the last month, and I'm just thrilled about it. It's already happening, and beautiful black dirt is coming out of there, and my plants are happier, and you know, I'm not wasting food, and I'm thrilled. I'm just thrilled. So I've totally given up plastic altogether. I'm off plastic. Yay! You know, so it's like an addiction, right? So I take my own little bags with me to put my vegetables in, or if I don't have them, I just put my food in the cart. But we're all, you know, overwhelmed and fatigued, and I don't blame you. You know, we all are. But you know, even you can make some little changes, no matter who you are. And join the team. Join the team. If you want your grandchildren or children to have a nice planet to live on, you'll make some of these little changes. It's really not hard to do. Buy organic food, for instance. Organic food is way better for the planet than conventional food. Why? Because conventional food douses the planet in chemicals, primarily glyphosates or Monsanto, and whatever kills those weeds does what else? Kills the probiotics in the soil. A really good soil, in one handful of really good soil, is more organisms than people ever existed on the planet. In one handful of soil, there are more organisms than people that ever existed on the planet. So don't buy the food that continues to poison the soil. I mean, beyond that, it's desertifying the land. It's said that up to 60% of our soil on the planet is already desertified, meaning turned into desert. But if you buy and grow and eat organic food, it does the opposite. It draws down the carbon, it fixes the nitrogen, and it's good for the planet. And it actually creates rain. When you plant good crops and the planet is more covered with greenery, the more covered with greenery the planet is, guess what? The cooler it is, and the more likely it is to create rain. So I also planted a new tree in my backyard. It's a nectarine tree. Just a baby now, but it'll be coming along. So these little things add up. So I ask you to join the team. Join Team Planet. Team Humanity. It is said that 98% of people are disengaged from this problem. We can't fix it like that. It's going to take action. It's not going to do it by itself. But like I said, if you watch that movie by David Attenborough, you'll become so inspired if you make the connection. When you see how fast the planet changes, you'll realize that small changes can improve. The planet will respond. Because the predictions are made upon a trajectory that's a scientific formula that they found out is not true. The scientific formula that we're on, we're actually not following the scientific formula now because we're getting worse faster than they ever thought. But if we make these small changes, we can reverse that and get better faster than they ever thought. And there's some real evidence for that. Just like in functional and integrative medicine, which is what I do, we got to get to the root causes. So we know a lot of them. We know that the crops that we grow to feed the cows, that we then torture and cut up and, they accumulate all these chemicals and feed to the people is part of the problem. Because the crops, it's the largest release of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere comes from those crops when you till the land, and it's been measured. And so if you use no-till farming, which is regenerative farming, organic farming, you're not going to be releasing all that carbon every year. And then if you don't feed those toxic cattle to people, but rather organic or regenerative raised cattle, it's going to be good for the planet and good for the people. Those toxins are probably the major cause of diabetes, obesity, heart disease. Sound familiar? Cancer. The top killers in the United States in our diet is coming from the way that we do food. The food system is probably the biggest problem. There are a number of places to identify, like I said, drill down, find the root causes. The food industry is a big one. Okay, so if we would change entirely to regenerative diet, it's predicted that we could change this process very quickly, even within a year or two. At least hold it steady. So watch that movie by David Attenborough, The Year the World Changed, and you'll see why. You'll see why we need to make these small changes. And it's because of COVID. So it's basically the gift of COVID that showed us, oh my God, when we take ourselves out of the environment of the planet, it can improve. All around the world, the fish came back to the canals of Venice, which they hadn't seen that for lifetimes. Clear canals and fish in those waters. The flamingos returned to Mumbai. They hadn't seen that. The Himalayas, which hadn't been seen in 30 years in India, became clear through a crystal clear sky. People were standing on their rooftops just astounded, staring at these miracles. And it happened all over the globe, all over the globe. The turtles, like I said, they began to reproduce again, and the babies could make it into the waters. The salmon, which we have now the least number of salmon that we've ever had, came back during those times. So it had happened so fast. The coral went away, and it's a very bad situation because the sea requires the coral to be healthy. During that year, the coral increased. It actually grew back in many places. So just so many miracles. And I was at home the other day, and I happened to notice, because I live by the ocean, down in South Beach, Malibu area, and I began to notice container ships going out one by one by one, and so many container ships. And I spoke about this on a previous talk, but as it turns out, and you probably noticed, your grocery bill is about 30% higher than it was last year. And actually, in fact, there are 56 at least container ships detained outside of the Port of Los Angeles on any given day. And that's because of COVID, which has changed the labor force, and they can't get new people to unload those boats and load those boats. And climate change, because all of the climate disasters on the planet have slowed down, changed the schedule of the boats, and the boats themselves disturb this ocean life. And if we could do something simple, make the unloading and loading more proficient, build robots, we're able to do that now, that can do that work, and then release the boats as groups, maybe of 4 or 6 or something, the animals in the water would have their time again to breed and talk to each other and reproduce and keep the oceans healthy. These aren't hard things to figure out, but so the root cause again is the abundance of boats, even when there aren't traveling as much as usual. And then now that they're not traveling well and they're getting hung up in the ports, we have a supply chain disruption. And that's why our groceries are much more expensive. So it's a very fascinating thing, and I just love the planet, and it's basically simple. She loves to be loved. She loves to be honored and loved. And I'm going to get to that a little more later when I talk about something from my book. But yeah, the good news. I wanted to tell you about the good news. So climate scientists have found out if we can restore critical areas of our environment to 9% or more carbon drawdown, we can offset all the carbon debt in the atmosphere accumulated since the Industrial Revolution. 9%. And they figured out this is possible with very few changes. That's huge. And if we can increase the drawdown to 14%, we can actually clear the debt going up to 2015. So with our small changes, that's what we want to shoot for. We can do it. We can do that. And also many of the solutions, which would be alternative energy options and other types of outside of the box thinking, would create new jobs and further economic benefits. As I mentioned, the regenerative food system is the single most healing action that we could do on this planet to get us back in together. And the other thing about, and I alluded to this, the food, is that it's causing this huge amount of chronic disease, which there's no end in sight. So we need this regenerative food revolution. What you can do right now, you can start by buying organic food or growing your own. You can even grow food inside now. I mean, even if you live in an apartment, even if you have no windows, they have these lettuce trees you can grow and hamama sprouts or other types of sprouts. Or you can grow tomatoes or other kinds of things in baskets that grow kind of upside down. And they turn out just amazing. And so it benefits you, it benefits your family because you get all those good nutrients. And it benefits ultimately the economy. Because otherwise we keep desertifying the land and poisoning it and having the temperature increase. We're going to continue to have these weather disasters, which is going to cause even more problems. I mean, the hurricanes down in the New Orleans and other places, and tornadoes recently down in Oklahoma, they're very abundant, and no one can deny now that they're way more abundant than they used to be. So we got to make some of these small changes and slow down the temperature increase. I have a podcast, as many of you might know. It's called Soul Stories, and I've been fortunate to have at least 3 regenerative farmers. We had the Blue Nest beef people on, and they're called Blue Nest because their type of farming cattle, which is grass-fed and rotating them around on plots of land, never letting them eat the grass more than halfway down, and so the grass becomes more robust. Guess what? They become more robust. They have no chemicals in them, and the meat is actually good for us, and it fixes carbon. But the way they do it is allow the prairie birds to repopulate the lands and across the plains. And so the Audubon Society has honored them, and they've been honored by the Audubon Society, and their name is Blue Nest Beef. I also had Timothy Kirchville, who is an amazing little individual. I shouldn't call him little, but who's gone across Tennessee, states all around him. He's come here to California, all over, and is teaching people how to go back to the land, how to grow food, that you can do it. And he says it's the hugest movement that has ever been of people returning to growing their own food. And then upcoming will be Sonny the Farmer, so watch for that. So for this talk, I want to credit David Attenborough in his movie, The Year the World Changed, Apple documentary. You can get the Apple TV and watch it. If you can't afford it, you can get it temporarily and then stop it again. Paul Hawkins' book, Regeneration, Ending the Climate Change in One Generation. And, of course, me, for my Soul Stories podcasts, and also for my book, Heal Yourself, Heal the Planet. So I want to talk a little bit about that, because in my book, this book actually came from a vision that came to me after a Sundance, my 1997 Sundance vision. Now, I was invited. It was a great privilege, and I'm so grateful to have been included in this Native American ceremony, which is so sacred. But I was able to dance in 4 Sundances, and this was my greatest vision. And in the vision, I was guided to write a book about applied healing, integrative healing, that would pull together the wisdom and knowledge and practices from all directions and all people. He told me that all people are one. So it doesn't matter what color we are, what race we are, what creed we are, what religion we are, what sex we are, how old we are, whether we're red or yellow or black or white, we're all human. We're all one people. And if people understand that and come from there with that awareness and recognition, and that the planet needs us, and that we begin to honor the planet the way we originally agreed to do, we can heal her. Just that energy alone will begin to heal her and begin to heal us. Because there's too much separatism in the world. There's too much wedges between different peoples for different reasons, and we all need to come together. We're all humans, and we're all facing this problem together. And it's going to take us that energy to make this healing happen. The earth needs it. So that was my vision, and I also personally had a philanthropic desire to, bring people under my wing so they might experience some of my journey to begin to know these things and wake up. And I became versed in 20 different modalities of medicine, and very privileged and gifted to be able to do that. Most of all, I wanted to raise the consciousness and share essential pieces to create an environment for healing people, humanity, and healing the planet. If people can heal themselves with integrative medicine, and I've been in this for 40 years now, and functional type medicine, they make all these new connections, in their mind, in their spirit, in their heart, in their soul. And by doing so, they become aware or woke, as the young people say. Anyway, I say it too, so it makes me younger. And a new awareness occurs. And you see the world and the planet and the way you interact with it and other people in a different way, in a better way. And that's what it's really all about. While I worked on this project, I talked to my older sister, and she told me, "Oh, you've been talking about that since you were a teenager." Well, perhaps she was right. I didn't have the same awareness of it as I did after that vision. I'm from Nebraska. I've always loved animals. I've always loved the land and the people. And I've always been attracted to native ways. And I felt like maybe because I had a near-death experience when I was born, and I saw these angels, I called them kind ones, and, they encouraged me to go back into my body, and I always felt, gifted and special because, I had that experience, because it right away attuned me to the one, to the oneness of people and to the planet. So maybe I was just born that way, but I felt like that experience was probably part of it. Before the horrible California and Amazon fires in 2019 and 2020 and the Australian fires, I felt inside this mounting feeling of destruction, and also a feeling of the upcoming pandemic. I felt it coming. And so I tried to get a hold of leaders. I tried to get a hold of President Obama. I tried to get a hold of Jane Fonda and Leonardo DiCaprio, which I did for a few minutes. But anyway, and because I felt if big leaders like that, we could get enough people on the same page that we could make a difference in terms of planetary, sources and needing help. And they did come out, which is interesting because it's sort of an example of one-mindedness, or maybe me just picking up on it, I don't know. But it is, if you look around, awakening happens for all of us. We're all capable of this. But it happens at different rates and times for different people. And I wrote my book as an agent of awakening for people, quickening, so that we could get to the business of healing the planet quicker. And after all, it was the COVID that did the quickening. And now we see by examining and studying what happened when we weren't in the environment. What did the planet do? It healed. And not only did it heal, but it healed way more than their trajectories and their scientific equations ever predicted. Making us know that the opposite is true. It's getting worse now, faster than they ever predicted, but it can also do the other. And that we proved that for an entire year. And if we can just pull ourselves out in different ways and get smarter in different ways, because we just identified several areas of root causes, the clothing industry, the food industry, big, right? And we can do things about that. It's whenever people decided, and I'm not sure when or how, they decided that the earth was a resource instead of a source. When in fact she's our source, and she should be honored and regularly, and not only, by what we do, but how we feel and how we pray. She is, after all, the reason we're able to live out our lives here. And without her, we're nothing. So, whenever that was decided, to use the earth as a resource instead of a source, we have to get back to the other way of thinking. It's not hard. They're really kind of close, but the earth is our source, our mother. And we need to thank her for giving us a place to exist and live out our lives on. And that means something. Include that in your prayers. It means something. And it does help the energy of the planet. And then those other small things that I mentioned, and there are many others. I'm sure you can think of them yourself. We can vote with our dollar. We're not governments. We can't change, the fishing laws, or we can't change the food system. But what we can do is vote with our dollar and buy the right kind of food that helps the planet be sustainable. And then our scraps, we can compost them and grow more stuff in our own yard. We can do that. They can't tell us what to grow, what not to grow. They can't tell us that. But we can know that it's important and do it, and make more oxygen and fix more carbon and nitrogen in the soil. The coronavirus forced us inward, and we learned, once we stepped out of the way, that the planet can heal much more quickly than we ever imagined, not according to scientific formulas. We're also realizing that, working at home is not such a bad deal. And living a hygienic life is not such a bad thing. And a good part of the media is just a bunch of nonsense. I say turn off the news. If you don't hear it today or even the next day and you listen once a week, you're still going to know everything that's going on. Because it's scaring you. It's making you anxious. And just meditate instead. Meditate. Breathe slowly in and out. In for 5, out for 6. And allow your body to let down. My teacher, Joseph Royale, used to have the guys who were so in their head hold on to 2 buckets of water. He goes, okay, go ahead and stand there. And then he'd go on to continue to work with the other students, and they'd be standing there and they'd start to shake. After about a half an hour to an hour, how long can you hang on to 2 buckets of water? And that was his point. At some point, you got to put them down and you got to relax. And that's what you all need to do too. We all need to do that. So whatever makes you relax, whether it's breathing or meditation. The breathing is a good tool because it's like a rheostat. Your own stress rheostat, you can turn it down and turn your own stress down right there in your own space. But, it's also a good go out and enjoy the beautiful nature. Go take your dog to the park or go out for a hike or a walk. It's the best thing you can do. Go to the green. Go to the green. We also learned that life is valuable and fragile and needs to be treated with great care and gratitude. the best motto that I can think of is be kind. Be kind and compassionate to everyone. And when I say everyone, I mean everyone. To the animals and plants and things as well as the other humans. There's nothing more important than that. I believe that with awareness, we can develop healing for ourselves. That we can develop healing for our planet. Just by our small steps. We can become truly the benevolent guardians of this planet that we agreed to be in the beginning. When we shift our awareness and our perspective and become part of the cosmic consciousness, part of the whole oneness of the whole human race, it's a healing energy. And it will help change the planet. They've even measured this. They can measure this from satellites. You know, when people work together in group form, you know, they have always said, oh, this is good. Your energy is not in your head or in you. It's out here. We're these little transmitters. And if we all point our sacred arrow in a good way, and stop, you know, ripping each other up and treating the planet like a resource and wasting and throwing away, that alone will make a difference. They've measured this like during Christmas or during high Jewish holidays or during Super Bowls, believe it or not, how the energy improves from a satellite. So it's not a woo-woo thing, it's a real thing, and we can do it at any time. It's not a timed thing. Energy is not about time, because God is not about time. Do it when you can do it, and it all adds up. Do what you can do, and then we'll all be can-do people together. The most important thing is achieving that oneness, that connection with God, the connection with other people, the connection with animals and plants and things. That's the most important thing in doing our small steps. We can't sit around and hope, oh, it's going to go, when is it going to go back to normal? It isn't going to go back to normal. It isn't ever going to go back to normal. This is the new normal. But it's not all that bad. You've got to change your perspective. See, with new eyes. It's kind of good, really. Working at home is kind of good. You don't have to drive around so much. You don't have to use gas, you know. It's kind of good. It's less stressful. And if we think we're going to go back to normal, we're losing the teachings of the pandemic. The teachings of the pandemic are that we can heal this planet with small steps. And she'll respond. And that we are becoming a new people. And if we can do it as a one people, that's going to heal us socially as well. Our humanity. Okay. That's my message. I hope you enjoyed it. You'll probably hear it again, or you can go back and listen to it again. Does anybody want to ask me something? Thanks, Pam. I guess you guys know that you can go back and find these Instagram TVs on my Instagram. You can also find them on my YouTube. So and then we're going to start offering it in a different way, so you can download them to your own computer or whatever, and you can listen to them whenever. And it will include a handout or writings with it. That's my new idea. No questions? Okay, well, don't forget to DM me. I love questions. I'm happy to answer whatever. And thanks for the hearts. Thanks for joining me. Love you guys.